Welcome, everybody. We're live here at Bearded Darkness Book Reviews, and I am so excited to have the lovely Shelly Campbell. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, and I've just heard of so many wonderful things, and then with Cora, we'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Look at me. So, what did you think about the intro song? Is that your cup of tea or no?
That's pretty sweet. Yeah.
All right.
The boys have my boys play baseball, and the oldest right now, his walk-up song is Metallica, so we're pretty happy with that. Yeah.
I got to see him in '09.
Nice.
Yeah, it was so fun. I asked because I like to rub it in my face because my wife's like, it's too long of an intro. I'm just like, okay.
It
Uh,
has to be gratuitous.
yeah, it has to let people have to know what's going to happen. And, it gets me pumped up. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
So let everybody know where you're coming from tonight, where you hail from tonight, what you do. And yeah, just kind of give an intro to Shelly Camp.
Hey everybody, my name, like it says, is Shelly Campbell. I'm out of Alberta, Canada, so we're mostly freezing cold all the time, and we're enjoying a very small heat wave right now. My day job is totally unrelated to writing. I'm oil field based. I used to be a
Wow.
plant operator at a sour gas plant, and now I just teach safety courses. It's pretty boring. But the first aid courses do help me with all my sorts of gory injuries that happen in books. You can rest assured that proper
Yeah.
first aid is being done. And then on my spare time, my day job finances what I do for fun. I like to write. It's usually stuff with a little bit of a darker bent. So I'm bit genre bending. My debut was a grim dark fantasy duology, and then I got into the Dark Walker series, which we just released the second book here, and that's kind of like a 80s feel, Stranger Things almost horror vibes, coming of age horror, and that kind of gets sci-fi as the series goes on. And then I have a young adult post-apocalyptic sci-fi series about the end of the world because of solar flares, and it's based in Canada, so that one's kind of fun because we always joke it's like Hunger Games but less violent because it's in Canada.
There you go. And guys and gals that are watching, I will throw up those covers as we go into the interview a little further because they are gorgeous. And now I've only dipped my toes in Mark Sun, and I think what I was looking for when you sent that to me was something a little different. And I don't mean crazy different. What I liked about it is the dreams. I don't know why that stuck in my head, but that gave me the feel I needed. Well, it's a little bit you can't escape kind of thing. It's inevitable. It just hit me in a dark way, and it was just wonderful. So let's start. If you don't mind, could we start with Mark Sun and
For sure.
give me a little bit of the inspiration behind the premise?
The first book in the Mark Sun series is called Under the Lesser Moon, and I was writing that forever, as happens with a lot of debut. You play with it. When my kids were young, there wasn't a lot of time to write. I toyed with the idea like way back in high school,
Amen.
and then just would pick it up, put it down, forget what I was doing with it. But the whole idea that stemmed from was I wanted to explore a couple different things. First off, it's based on culture, Stone Age kind of. I didn't want to set it at your typical medieval fantasy. I'm like, pick a different setting. I want to go like Stone Age hunter gatherer kind of thing. So it's almost like Paleolithic caveman kind of setting. So very like Clan of the Cave Bear setting ish. Okay, but in this culture, these people believe that their goddess, her angels are dragons. So it's a very similar world to ours, but set further back in time. And there's dragons. The dragons are going extinct. The people think it's because their goddess is angry at them for some reason. So they start making bigger and bigger sacrifices. So part of it was based on how can you mess up a creation myth enough that people start believing weird things. So I wanted to set it so that instead of your eldest sons being kind of the high of your family. Like if you look at typical Western culture, and even some other cultures, your eldest son inherits the land. If you're royalty, they're going to be the next king. I'm like, what if you do the opposite? What if it's like it is for some countries right now? If you're a daughter, what if your eldest son is the pariah of you? What if they're the scapegoat? What if everything that goes wrong in your world, you get to blame on them?
I need to borrow your brain sometime.
Yeah, so I set it at that, and it's just these people that are their whole creation myth, what their belief system is falling apart. They think their goddess is abandoning them, and they start making bigger and bigger sacrifices. And our main character, unfortunately, finds out he's supposed to be one of those sacrifices.
Mm-hmm. So I, wow, yes, so many things that I have to gather really quick. The first being another epically baffling, intriguing, somewhat kind of dark, different than my experience growing up with my mother. And I'm not ruining anything, y'all. I won't throw any spoilers in. But there's a son that is blamed for something by his own mother, and it's kind of hard to think about. Is where did the inspiration to touch on such an intimate part of life, your parents, and being a child, and kind of the bond that's supposed to be there being non-existent from the very beginning?
That kind of stems from, I do this a lot with my main characters. I want you to kind of fall in love with my main characters.
Oh,
And I know every author does, but I want you to get the feels for them, because if you don't care about them as a character, then you don't care about anything that happens next. Who cares if they get killed? Who cares if they're having bad times? So I I like to make you care for them if I can first, and that means you got to show some relationships, or like lack of relationships. And we've all had some feelings of abandonment, even
yeah.
if we don't have something going on as drastic as this story. Um, but I had fantastic parents growing up. I always joke with everyone, I write darker fiction because there's absolutely nothing dark going on in my life. I have a pretty easy going, chill, happy life. So it's fun to explore the dark side of stuff, and how bad things could be. Um,
I
but I
think
always like the hope factor. So I put characters into hopeless situations where you're like, oh gosh, they're never getting out of this, and try and bring them through.
I have to say, there's some interviews that start as ours has, and I didn't realize that just bombs you're dropping already. And I'm not just saying that. I promise you, like these intimate relationships that help you to care about a character. I mean, that's that inside little gold nuggets that I'm after, because I want to be a writer. I do. I have zero time right now, and I've really tried. But
It'll
what
come.
I'm gathering the experience that you've had and so many other, and you said so many profound things already. So that jumps out to me. The characters forming, you're relating to those characters. Inevitably, you're going to have some sort of empathy, which is going to help you care about that character. Yeah. So, wow. I'm sorry. I was kind of just blown away because I had thought about that for like 5 hours one day. I was just like, how does somebody come up with that kind of relationship right at the beginning of the book and have it hit so well, have me care about a character so early? Um,
And it's hard because you have to strike that balance. People want story too. They just don't want this whole person's history. So there's a lot about your character that you're going to know that the reader never does know, and that's fine. But you got to give them that scene. So like we've all had
Ooh.
that. What's something pivotal in your childhood? What's one small thing you remember that just stuck with you, and you're like, that's the kind of scene you need. Especially mine. A lot of mine are coming of age stuff. So at Christ in Under the Lesser Moon, you start out with him very young, and same as in Breach, not as young for Golf, the Dark Walker series, but David is like only 16, 17 when that book starts.
And you said strike a balance, and you did. It's like we're getting the sense of a character, but without me even noticing as I'm reading, there's also history that I'm being told, especially at the beginning. Wow, I love that. So we started off with a book. I don't normally do that, so I'm going to rewind just a tad, if you don't mind.
No
And
worries.
I always love to ask foundational questions. So when did you know you loved, whether it was reading first, writing first, just literature in general? Were you young or?
Young, I had grandparents that had this big farmhouse with a library upstairs, and we had big family, lots of cousins, and they'd come out most weekends. So our weekends were really interesting. I grew up as a farm kid, but on the weekends you'd have 20 to 30 cousins come out, and you're all around the same age, and you'd play. And I'd play with them for a little while, but eventually everyone would be like, where's Shelly? Oh, she's hiding in the library
She's
upstairs
reading.
reading, right? So I'd get away from people and go have reading breaks. My sister and I found, this was hilarious. We were cleaning my mom's basement a while ago and found like this frilly pink girl's diary with a lock on it. And I'm like, that is yours. There's no way it was mine. And she's like, no, it's yours. So we're like, let's bust it open and see whose it was. Turns out it was mine when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And in the diary when I'm 8 years old, it says, I'm going to grow up to be a writer someday. So apparently
Yes.
quite early on. Yeah,
Oh, that
always
is,
was writing dark fiction that got actually, I'll read you quick the
please.
dedication to golf. This is the first
Oh,
in
it's
the series,
gorgeous.
in the Dark Walker series. Yeah, I got to actually design the covers this time around, which is fun.
I believe
But
you. I've seen your covers. Oh my gosh.
my dedication on this one's funny. To my parents who endured many uncomfortable meetings with elementary school English teachers to discuss why Shelley had written another disturbing story. Apologies, I never did stop writing them. So yeah, they got called into the principal's office because I wrote stories without happy endings in elementary school, and that troubled my teachers.
I caught the story, so I wouldn't ask any. When you were reading it, the internet caught off and it kind of lagged. Could I ask you, please, to read that again?
Oh, for sure.
I'm so sorry. I just
No
want to hear it
worries.
so bad.
It says, to my parents who endured many uncomfortable meetings with elementary school English teachers to discuss why Shelley had written another disturbing story. Apologies, I
Oh,
never did stop writing them.
I love that. Wow. So how was that experience just to like find this lost, never to be found again, never to be thought of again, you know, piece of memorabilia from the younger you to see that?
That was wild, actually, because like I said, there was I didn't write. At first, it was like I got it for a present from somebody, and I like wrote in it like every day, and I'm like, look at me, I'm going to be a diary writer now. And then it's pretty obvious that 7 or 8 year old me procrastinated well, and and so there'd be like 2 months, and then 6 months, and then a year before the next entry. But it was fun because it was this mix of like everyday life stuff at 7 years old that I never would have remembered. It's like we went to the zoo this weekend and it was okay, I guess. And then like, yeah, just like getting inside of your head when you're 7 or 8 years old, having never remembered even writing any of that stuff. It was really cool to find that I wanted to be a writer way back then.
If I could find that box of like old GI Joes or wrestlers from the WWF when it was the WWF, that would probably be my similar thing. That would be
Right?
cool. Um, oh, that is so excellent. So, all right, so that's a wonderful kind of foundational story. Is when would you say you first started loving literature? Was it way before then? Were you super young?
I can't remember much further back, but yeah, I was always reading. Yeah.
Wow. See, that's so much different than mine. So I love to hear those types. So my mom and dad, like you said at the beginning, there were your parents were great, and I had great parents, and just reading wasn't something they pushed me to do. I think they encouraged it. They just didn't, I guess, put that extra little shove to get me to do it. And honestly, I wouldn't have. Once I got to high school, I think I read one book in my whole entire life until I started reading the way I do now, which I find isn't the case very often. Um, so I get a different feel to books than when I talk to people who have read for 30 years.
Hmm.
So relating my story to others is very fun. What would you say is the biggest pro of getting an early start? Would you say that it's a bigger, better, more detailed imagination or better language skills?
I don't even know if it would be that. I think it's that you start to know what you like, and as you grow, that changes as well. So you start to get some favorites and what you can come back to. And what you were saying, where you didn't start reading, I found it such a fascinating thing because I got boys, and one of them likes to read, but it's only he like sports stuff. That's what he likes is just sports. And with boys, especially, there's lots of stuff for them to read when they're little, and there's lots of stuff to read when they're like grade 3, 4, 5, and then all of a sudden grade 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the well kind of dries up for fiction that boys are interested in. It's getting better now because
Wow.
there's like graphic comics, right? And there's stuff like that. But before it was like, okay, well, you get to a certain age and it's like maybe the odd choose your own adventure book. You can only get those from the library every so often, or
Hmm.
Tom Hardy, and the fiction that like there's not a lot of YA fiction out there. So a lot of kids get to this age, young adult, and are like, even if I did like reading, there's nothing here at
Hmm.
the bookstore that interests me anymore, until you get back into like adult fiction. Luckily, that's changing, but I found that's a big driver. My boys, big readers when they're little, and they're busy, right? They get busy doing stuff. Mine are in hockey and baseball and all that, but yeah,
Oh,
they're having
hockey.
a hard time finding books they like now.
I I love that you brought that up because I have 3 boys and I have 1 girl, and I really want them to have the experience that I hear so many people like you tell me about. I want them to have an imagination. I want to read The Hobbit. It be this time that they remember when they're 50. You know, I found myself at first trying to like kind of force that to happen because they're still way too young for The Hobbit. And
Yeah.
I tried like 2 years ago. My wife's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, but I guess I'm just excited. And I hope that one day they can say, hey, it helped me in these ways. Or I get to point out certain things that I didn't get to experience at their age.
Yeah.
Either way, reading you can't go wrong with, especially with, you know, whether it's studying, learning for fun, fiction. I think it's just good for you, your brain. It keeps it well oiled.
Yeah, and they say that people that read a lot of fiction are a little bit more empathetic to other people because again, you're putting yourself in other people's shoes on a regular basis. So it's easier
Great point.
in real life to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Wow. So did you take, they call it university in Canada, right? I think we say college here. Is that the equation?
Yeah.
So did you take any writing university, or are you like me and just kind of know that you have a passion for writing?
I took it in high school. I dropped out of university. When I was young, I wanted to be in the military. I was going to be
Me
an
too.
Air
Oh
Force
my.
pilot, and Canada has a very small Air Force. So back then, they weren't looking for pilots, and they said, if you even want to apply, we want a bachelor degree in the sciences. So
In
don't
the
even
Air
come.
Force?
Yeah, don't even come looking until you got a bachelor degree in the sciences. So I'm like,
Wow.
all right, that like 18 years old. I'm like, I guess physics would probably be the one that they would like the most. So I went and took physics in university for like 1 year. And in that span, I'm kind of giving my age away here. Canada went into the Gulf War. And then I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know if I actually want to be in the military for fighting. Because up until that point in my childhood, Canada had only been on like peacekeeping missions. We hadn't been involved in any sort of conflict. And
Yes.
so then I'm like, well, if I don't want to get into the Air Force, what am I going to do with Bachelor of Physics? And I ended up just totally dropping out. So I did take a little bit of university, but not much, and nothing to do with writing. It actually helped down the road when I got into the plant operating power engineering job. It was all the physics I took in universities that 1 year. So
Wow.
it wasn't totally wasted.
It is incredible how similar our stories are. When you said I wanted to be in the military and then I dropped out of university, well, that's my exact story.
Yeah.
Except the reason I wasn't able to go into the Air Force because I had went through MEPS and signed for the Air, had a leave date. I found out I had Crohn's disease and they wouldn't let me go.
Oh, brutal.
But went to college a few different times. It just wasn't for me, and I kept trying to force it. And then other life stuff happened. But now that I have that kind of burning passion, I sit back and wonder.
Oh, video is frozen up. I don't know if it's my end or yours.
But I'm not sure. Can you see me now?
Yes, now.
Rock on. It must have been the software. So I see these young people who are going to college for a writing degree, creative writing, what have you. They have their own idea of what they want to do. But I sit in that, I have this passion that I've never felt for really anything else other than maybe playing the drums. I'm really passionate about music. And that being something I want to do at their age, do they feel that same burning desire? Did I miss out on that as a young kid? I always wonder certain things like that. I certainly hope they do.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't think my boys do yet. Mine aren't at the age where they have a burning desire to do anything other than play the occasional sport and play video games, watch TV, right?
Well, I think it takes maturity.
Yeah,
I think
it does.
takes maturity to have a passion for something. You have to take time for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I wrote and stuff like that, but I wouldn't have gotten anywhere at that age with writing. The cool thing nowadays about any sort of education is if you do want to learn how to do something, it's never too late, and it doesn't necessarily have to be college or university. Geez, the internet can be a terrible place, but my God, you can learn whatever you want to learn.
I know people hate people hate when people say that or Google exists. Well, I get why people don't like that or the thought of not going to a classroom and looking up your answers and teaching yourself. Like, I don't understand the negativity by that, because I think it's the most freeing thing that you could do to any person is to give them knowledge or
Yeah.
the ability to gain any kind of knowledge that they want. Um, but yeah, I think that we're living in a very cool time, to be able to learn whatever you'd like for 100% free. You're just not going to have that diploma, which I think will change. Something has to change as far as certificates and diplomas go, because there are some very, very excellent unqualified workers in the market, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as far as stepping stones, what was your very first uh, book? That was it the very first book that you published, or did you have some stepping stones before it?
Oh, Under the Lesser Moon was the very first book.
Get out
It
of
was, yeah,
town.
it was rewritten. It had a bumpy road to publication, like most books do. It got accepted to the very first person I queried to, which was
Wow.
insane. It was a local publisher in this area who happens to be like the biggest science fiction fantasy publisher in Canada at the time. Which, I mean, there's not a lot of sci-fi fantasy publishers in Canada, so
Okay.
it's not a big claim, I suppose. But yeah, they saw it, they offered, and then they didn't send a contract for quite some time. And I think they were just a slower paced, really slow paced publisher. And it got to the point where it had been like a year. And they'd still said they were interested in it, but hadn't even sent contractual information.
Huh.
So I pulled it from them and I subbed it again, and it went through quite a bunch more queries that time, and ended up signing with a really small publisher in Winnipeg. They were just starting up, but they were super excited about it and rewrote like the whole book pretty much from
Okay.
scratch, and split it into the duology. It was originally 3 books, but
Okay.
not really well done. So yeah, rewrote it all and published with them, and they did a fantastic job editing and got a wonderful cover art from them.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
it's
in
great.
about a year and a half, they folded because they're a small publisher and small publishing is hard.
Yeah, it's
So I
very.
ended up getting the rights back for that, and then was really lucky that the cover artist gave the rights back too. So I brought them back self-published. So now I know they're staying on the shelves at least. And I've had a few publishers close their doors. So when that happens, inevitably, sometimes I'll bring them back as self-published books so they stay on the shelves.
That's awesome. Well, I think taking the chance on saying, "Hey, you've been kind of sitting on. You said you're interested, but there's action that needs to be behind that. And making the decision to kind of move forward. I think that's huge. I'm sure that wasn't easy because you're kind of in lingo, right?
Yeah.
I have some wonderful people over here in the chat. I have to shout out my lovely wife. Love that you didn't. Yes, the norm exactly. And she's digging the '80s vibe. She said, by the
Oh,
way.
good.
What's going on, Mike? Mike Melwassel, man. One of the finest last names. Graf Fuller, what's going on?
Graph, hi.
Good to be here listening to this discussion. Well, it's good to have you, man. And that cup of coffee looks pretty good on your picture
It
there.
does look
It
satisfying.
does. Hot, steamy coffee, man. Jim McCleary, what's going on, man? Good to see you here. Ithra, the audiobook queen. That's her name now. She
Excellent.
is just like on X. It's like she throws up and she reads hella audiobooks. So if I need an audiobook, all I got to do is look through her Twitter feed. It's incredible.
Nice. Ithra, I do almost all audio now too. I got a long drive to work.
It was funny earlier. One of my buddies, Aaron from Bibliotheory, the channel Bibliotheory, he threw up his Audible time, and he's like, "Do you audio, bro?" Crying, like being a smart ass. And he put his like 1 month, so many hours. And I posted mine. I said, "Do you audio, bro?" It was like 3 months and something. And he's like, it was funny because I don't think he thought anybody had a higher time. And I'm sure I have very low time compared to a lot of people, but it was just really funny. As
Yeah.
audiobook lovers, we all know how much time we spend,
Hmm.
whether it's picking out that book or listening to narrators. I love it.
Yeah.
By the way, the narration is incredible. To book
I
one, it's
really lucked out with the narration for Under the Lesser Moon. That was when I brought it back self-published. I decided, well, since somebody I had a publisher and like they paid for covers, they paid for editing, so all the money that I saved that if I had never gotten it published and would have self-published it myself, I'm like, well, I'm going to use that and get an audiobook now, and
Oh,
really lucked out with my narrator. Yeah, Ryan, he
what an
did an
intro
amazing
to
job.
what
Yeah,
an intro to your writing. First, I have to say,
yeah,
what an impact it had on me to start your writing with that book. Having an audiobook, which is just a huge plus for me because at nighttime, that's what I do.
yeah,
So be able to take the Kindle with me and do that during the day and kind of take notes and then listen to it at night. That is an absolute crusher of an
yeah.
intro
Ryan
for
made
an author.
such a big difference in that
What
book.
was his name?
Ryan Haugen. Yeah, yeah. He's awesome.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure I can't afford him anymore. He's that good.
I've heard similar stories. Like I remember hearing about Stephen Pacey, the guy that did Joe Abercrombie, and he was big before Joe Abercrombie's books. But man, I think he shot to the moon after the first law. Yeah, what's going on, brother? Hey guys, just realized my comments not posting. Well, what the heck, man? We're gonna have to fix that. You're the moderator. You got to fix it, man. I don't even know how to do that. You got to tell me. Glad to hear, man. Ithra says my actual university sent me back 40. Oh, yeah, come on, yeah.
Oof.
Even with grants and money scholarships, my wife deals with that stuff too. She'd have a bachelor degree if it wasn't for craziness like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They hold it hostage until and they don't care if you're in the situation at the time when they reach out to you to kind of say, hey, I know you don't have the extra money, but we're going to keep your hard-earned this and that,
Brutal.
which there's two sides to it. I get it, but I think something needs to kind of come in and mediate.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the short story called A Warrior Still. She's a great writer. Oh,
Thanks,
cannot
Grab.
wait.
That one's fun. That one's I tried to put it for free on Amazon, and the only way you can make Amazon put something for free is if you list it on Ingram and then you tell Amazon you have to price match because I've listed it for free somewhere else, and then they'll put it for free. But every now and then, if I'm not watching closely, they just bump it back up to 99 cents, and I keep having to be like, price match. It's free. But yeah, that one's just a short story, and it's got a centaur main character. It's
Ooh.
fun.
I think I would do exactly what you're doing just because I could corner Amazon. It's not going to make too much of a difference. But at the end of the day, I could be like, yeah, I cornered him.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, it's me and YouTube. Dude, I get it. I was there. I'm still there. Awesome. So what I have my questions. I'm reading a couple real quick. Bear with me, y'all.
No worries.
Oh, here we go. I always forget the big ones. When you were trying to discover the way your process, going through a book, how you started, whatever your process entails, how did you come across it? How did you eventually figure it out? And are you an outliner or a pantser?
Trial and error. I was a pantser, and I'm the worst kind of person to be a pantser. I pants like I drive. I'm like, oh, look at that road. I wonder where it goes. Let's go explore to the very end of that, even though I'm not supposed to be going there. Every road I wanted to look down and be like, oh, let's explore this avenue. Until finally you're like with books, okay, well, that was a dead end, and so is that. And I wasted 20,000 words writing this. And so that's why I had to rewrite book one.
Okay.
Moon so much is because it just no outline, just like freedom writing. Let's see where it takes me, and it turns out it takes me a lot of places where it probably shouldn't be going anyways, and wasn't helpful to the story.
Non-cohesive places.
Yeah. So now I'm kind of a mix of both. I do an outline, but it's just a very rough outline. What does Act 1, 2, 3 look like? Where do I want the general story to go arc-wise? And then chapter by chapter, I kind of figure out my characters, grow into them as I go. And sometimes we end up following the outline, and sometimes my characters are like, nope, we're going somewhere else. But usually I'm far enough into the book that I know my characters. When I get stuck or I get writer's block, it's usually because I'm trying to make a character do something that they wouldn't do.
Oh, I love that. And it was a while of asking that question that I just asked you to authors before I got an answer like yours that really clicked with me. I had tried to be a pantser, but at like day 3, I knew it wasn't for me. I'm so glad I realized it that early. I could not remember, even if it was just like 200 or 300 words, what I was writing the day before. And I'm like, okay, after 30,000 words, you can't just do a quick refresh.
Yeah.
So not being cohesive day to day. not really having a direction. So I think the best process for me, at least I think, again, I haven't had a lot of time to try it, but I'm very excited to, is to vaguely have some plot points like what you're saying, kind of the acts and maybe even chapters. Um, but what I love hearing is how the characters kind of take you either away from it, or sometimes they take you with it, but you're letting the characters naturally evolve.
Hmm.
And that must feel so cool.
It is, because sometimes they go places where you don't expect, or sometimes you get characters that were just supposed to be side characters, and you're like, "Whoa, buddy, stealing the show," which is
Oh,
fun
okay.
too. Yeah, I
So
have
like
a
a character you
character.
had previously had on the side kind
Hmm.
of was like, you know, I'm taking front seat with this.
I have a funny story for Breach, which is book 2 of the Dark Walker series that was just released. I did a little Facebook takeover. My publisher has Facebook page. All the authors did a takeover one day, and you each had like a little 1 hour where you were the admin and got to run away with
Oh,
Sage, and you just did fun little games and stuff. And I was just starting to think about writing Breach at that time. So I said a few different things. Name a character. What would be something people would find that would be odd in a man-eater's stomach? And man-eaters are these monster alien creatures that eat people, so they'd have lots of interesting contents in their stomachs.
yeah,
But
for
the one that
sure.
took off was, you get to be named after a character. A character in the story gets to be named after you, and they're going to have a gory death. They're going to get eaten by a man-eater, and you get to pick their last words. And so a bunch of people commented, and then I just drew random names, and it ended up being a friend of mine, Corey,
Wow.
different Corey, who won.
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
this is cool. And so I'm like, great, I got this character, Corey, who I have to kill off, and I have this last words that he have to say, and he picked his last words as, "I hope I give you indigestion," which I was like, well, that's going to be fun to try and fit in. But then
Yes.
the character Corey became like so integral and charismatic in book 2 that I'm like, I had to email my friend Corey and be like, "Corey, I can't kill him. Like, I need him for book 3. He's so good. I
He
can't
wasn't
kill him." I'm like,
expecting.
how about I just put another side character in as well and kill him, and he gets the line, "I hope I give them indigestion." But Corey stays, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine."
He was not expecting that. He was totally like, she cannot wait to get to that scene. Then you call him like, look, I can't do it, man.
Yeah.
Ah, I love that it kind of picked the generator picked a friend, because I mean that's a fun situation to kind of act out, but it being somebody you knew, that's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Um, kind of, since we said it, Corey, I absolutely, and this is one of the biggest reasons at first why we were going to talk, and then your writing got in my face and my head and stayed there.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, I absolutely am so thankful for it. Um, so talk about how you and Corey kind of met. Corey Ratliff, guys, the fine gentleman who's going through a terrible time right now. Just I'll leave it at that, but I've prayed for him. Love you, Corey, man. But you guys met and you've done some wonderful things for him. So would you tell the story?
Sure. Um, I just randomly met Corey on Twitter. He had been posting that he'd got a set of new covers for a book series of his, and they were really eye-catching. They had dragons on them, and anything with dragons on them, I'm like, yes, that's my jam. I love dragons. I
Yeah.
draw dragons all the time. I wrote a dragon book too, and they were nice-looking covers. So I remember seeing those floating around Twitter a bit and liking it a few times, and we were like, ah, that's a cool cover. And then he posted one day, and I just caught, like, I wasn't even following him. I don't think. I just viewed a few of his posts and just happened to catch this post that he had discovered that these covers that he had paid for, and had asked that it wasn't AI art used, ended up having AI art used. And when he went back to the creator of the cover and said, "Hey, look, like, this isn't what I paid for," they kind of just dropped off the face of the earth. And
Of
he
course.
was really concerned about it, and pretty strong morals regarding AI art, as I do, and
Hmm.
said, I'm going to pull my books. And I thought, my heart kind of broke for him. I've had books that had died in the water before, and thought, geez, like, he's right there. He just relaunched. They were nice covers. He's super excited about it. He just relaunched them. They're getting some traction. Like, what a shame. And I thought, well, I doodle dragons anyways. I'm like, Corey. So I just reached out to him direct message, and I'm like, hey, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I like drawing dragons. If you want a new cover and you tell me just what you want, it looks like you've done all your own text and stuff, because I'm not a cover artist, like
Mhm.
fonts, and it's a whole different science, cover art, than
Yeah.
just art. And like, it looks like you're really set up well for like text and background and all that. And like, I'll draw you some dragons. And he's like, I don't know if I can afford anything right now. I'm like, no, like for free. Just I draw dragons anyways. So I drew up one that he liked, and he used it, and then he was so excited about it. Yeah, there you go. He
Oh,
ended up using them for his next couple of books, and now he's hired me on, paid to do some. Yeah, that's the first one there. That was my favorite, to do some
I
interior art, and yeah, it's been really fun.
I
Yeah,
met Corey. He was one of my very first interviews ever on this channel. And had respect for him for a while. He's a veteran. He's a family man. Me and him align on many different levels, and to kind of see that situation go where it did, and then I've I've never seen such an inspiring change, turn of events, I guess. He is doing absolutely wonderful, and
yeah,
I
the
think
books are
as one,
taking off, and it's really fun to see.
it's
Yeah.
and
I
it
mean,
was when
don't
you
get me
did the
wrong, he's
covers.
worked his tail off.
Well,
Anybody that has their books take off has worked their tail off for it, but it
well,
was
of
nice to be
course.
a part of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
yeah,
I told him during our interview, I was like, man, just to have be that brave to kind of reinvent yourself. It was kind of the tone of
yeah,
the interview, that not being afraid to say, okay, instead of that old thing, we're gonna do this new thing and see how it does. Because
yeah,
I'm an indie author, I'm self, but I can do that. I
yeah.
have those options, and to see that just really work out, uh, it's incredible. And I know that he has so much uh, respect and so much thanks for the wonderful covers you did. And I think they're some of the finest covers, honestly, that I've ever seen in my life. They're just so striking.
They're
Uh,
really cool put
uh,
together. I mean, I like all I did was draw the dragon, and he slapped it on there. He did all the fonts and the backgrounds and all of that. So
the thing is I
yeah.
saw your sped up video, so you can't turn me. I already seen your process.
And
You did
that's
a
the
lot of
nice
work.
thing, it was, like, he got burned by AI art, and I do all
Mm,
my art now. Well, I do a lot of traditional art too, where it's
mhm.
easels and
Yeah,
paint and all that, but it's expensive, whereas an iPad, once you paid for it, is free. There's no art supplies to buy. But the one thing, it's called Procreate. It's like a $15 app, and it's only Apple based,
mm,
unfortunately. But yeah, it just does videos as you like anything you draw. It'll be like, do you want a progress video? I'm like, yeah. And so I'm like, he'd been burned by AI art before, and I want to be able to give them reassurance that like, hey, I made this from scratch. I'll send you a video so you know it's not AI art. Because
that's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
And it's really cool to kind of back up what you just said. It's like there's art, and different kinds of art are just that. They're very different. My wife is an excellent graphic designer, and that's what she does and for a living. And to see like cover illustrators and then what she does, they're very different. They're both done on the same, like a computer. You use creative bones, and um, I would have no idea what goes into cover design, but to see how much work goes into just a company wanting a logo, or
yeah, yeah.
um,
It's so much more work than you think.
I I can't imagine. Yeah, I really couldn't even speak on it, just because I know how much work this is. I see her do it every day compared to a very
Yeah.
complex piece of art.
The funny thing is, even with something as small as a logo, people that have like absolutely no training in art, if you get something wrong, even in something as a logo, people can see it's wrong. They can't
Yeah,
pinpoint what's wrong with it, but anybody can see if something's wrong with a logo or a piece of art or anything. They can tell that something's wrong with it. They just don't know what it is.
and
So,
that's a huge part of like monetizing your art, is dealing sometimes with customers. If you have that sort of way of selling things, like if it's not necessary, it's commission, but it's, when I say commission, I feel like it's this big expensive, like month-long job, but they are small commissions, I guess. But
yeah.
people are a part of that transaction, and some people have these thoughts, and people that are creative with and good at art, like, this won't look good on paper. I like your idea, but could I maybe help you in a way that will look centered and better and some asymmetrical. And lots of people will just not take that advice, and
Hmm.
they'll pay for a bad logo, and then a week
And you're
down
like,
the line, they're like, I don't think I like this. It's like, well, you know,
yeah, don't want to
so,
say told you, but
yeah. I guess
yeah.
I bring it up just because there's so many different aspects to art than one may think at
Hmm.
face value. Um, so yeah, wonderful, wonderful thing with Corey. So let's see, what are you reading? Are you reading anything now?
I am reading The Fall Is All There Is, and I can't remember
Ooh,
who it's by. CM. Oh, I'm gonna feel really bad
I
because I was
can.
just reading it. I can look it up on my phone.
Yeah, it's CM Kaplan.
Yeah, CM Kaplan. Yeah, I'm in the middle of that, and that one's really fun right now because it's a cool mix of fantasy and sci-fi, and it's got autistic main characters, and yeah, really cool.
Thyroid magic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who would have
It's
thought?
got ghosts that can be breathed in like vapors, and yeah, it's wild.
I
Yeah.
told him I had him on the channel. I've talked to him a few times, and he's funny. And I told him that I'm itching to read the highly acclaimed, went very far in the SPFBO. I've not heard a single bad thing about the book. I'm scared to read it, and I'll tell you why. I know I'm going to love it, and I want it to be a part of something bigger, like a buddy read or
Right.
um, what have you. And that hasn't come up yet, so I haven't read it. But I am very excited to read what I've heard so much about.
It's pretty
Um,
cool so far. It'll be book hangover material. You know when you start a book and you're like, "Ooh, don't want to read it too fast because this one I'm gonna have a hangover from."
yes, it was actually the first book that got me to where I'm at now, liking fantasy books and then wanting to review and find out that I really wanted to interview people, which was, and I hope you read it someday and we can talk about it. Maybe you've already read it. Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro.
Oh, I'm gonna have to write that one down. I haven't.
It's an adult dark academia with not a lot of the academia, but enough. With instead of Harry Potter, it's like there's different spells that they do. Um, it's more like they have different, well, talents. It's called the Talent Trilogy. But just for instance, to give you a little bit of what I mean, is one of the characters is he's created. You have to create him for him to walk around, and he's just rotten meat.
Interesting.
So it's incredibly cool. And it just stole my heart. I had no idea I was going to read fantasy. I had no clue. And all of a sudden, this book smacked me right in the teeth.
Nice.
And I'm here. I'm here for it. I actually got the arc to book too. I got to get that done before September. But yeah, Ordinary Monsters, absolutely foundational for me.
Very cool. I'll have to put it on my TBR for sure.
Let me know if you ever read it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. I have missed comments. I'm so sorry, guys. Yes, Ithra. I knew you've been checking it out. I knew it. And Ithra, I have to say, as far as audiobooks go, top 3 for me. His voice is, and it probably sounds like I'm being biased, and maybe I am, but his narration is just absolutely retarded good, just so good. The British accent in such a refined way, nothing like it. So, what's coming up for you? What are you kind of working on now, and what's in the near future for you, Shelly?
I just finished book 3 in the Dark Walker series and got it off to my publisher. So that was kind of cool because I get to wrap up a trilogy. And that's the first time I've
Oh,
wrapped up a trilogy. So you have to, I'm hoping I nail the landing because
so what does that feel like? Wait.
it's anxious because it'll feel good when I know what other people think of it. I've had
Mm,
some beta readers and critique partners read through it, and they really liked it. They've known David since he was a draft on scrap paper.
mm.
But yeah, it was cool. I think it felt like it came together really well, and then always that bit of sadness. We're like, wow, spent a bit of time with these characters. Now I'm done. Um, I got
Is there
to do book
melancholy?
a bit, yeah, yeah, yeah. But exciting too, because again, I got to design the cover for that series, and book 3 covers the best cover of all of them. Can't share it at
Yeah.
all yet, but I've as soon as I knew I was doing cover art for the relaunch of Golf and Breach, I did all 3 covers at once.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
was like, no, I already know what the covers are gonna look like for everything. And then
That
I'm working on book 3 next, coming up of the young adult, the Knowledge of Self Soul Survivor series, where it's solar flares, and that one is interesting because the publisher for that one, we had written book 2 and thought that that was it. I co-wrote that with a friend of mine, and we had wrapped up book 2 thinking, okay, done, neat little bow. And they're like, no, we need 3 books. I'm like, oh, Okay.
Threw a
So
wrench in the plans.
yeah, so we're very early stages of outlining what we're going to do with that one because we never intended to have a book three, but I'll be working on that one for the next year or so. I'm a slow writer. And then after that, I'm free. I'm not contracted to write anything. I can write whatever I want. The last little while, it's been all existing series stuff, which is cool, but it'd be nice to like start fresh on something. I've got some cool
Sure.
ideas for horror books that
That's
I'd
kind
like
of
to start
that,
into.
that's kind of like what I was going to say. Like when you found out now that you do have to write this book three, is that a feeling of all right, I guess, or I'm excited, but I have to consider a lot of things and I don't, lots of things.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on a deadline, so you know, it's not just your time now, it's other
Sure.
people's time already scheduled ahead of time. I've already had to push the deadline on it once cuz they originally wanted it done in 6 months, and I can write in 6 months, but I can't write a
Mm.
young adult post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel in 6
Thank you
months.
for yeah, no, I'm glad that you touched on that because that's a hard space to be in, creatively and I'm sure bunch of different variables.
Yeah.
But thank you for speaking on it because that's not where my mind goes sometimes as far as the realistic part of sometimes of writing, and that is a realistic part of it. So
Yeah, a lot
always
of times, especially with major fiction, if you're like, book one was amazing, and like book two kind of felt rushed. It was like, it was. Book one, they had all the time in the world to write it. And then when it got accepted, they had a major publisher being like, and book two now, and book three now, and book four now. So yeah,
wow.
some of them, they are rushed. Some of them, the author does wish they had a bit more time. They could have polished it. And they're just like, depending on the publisher. I work with pretty small publishers, and as long as you give them a lot of heads up, they're pretty nice about extending.
Well, I've heard the exact opposite when talking to big published, like big time published,
Hmm.
the top four. What do they call them? The big four, big five.
Hmm.
What like Orbit and Tor. I've heard the exact opposite, and
Mm.
almost unanimously, it's like it's not fun to get pushed into something you love to do and not have that space for your creativity to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've
So
had friends like with covers or editing where the editor's like, I don't like this idea. It's going to go this direction. And it's not like, I think it should go this direction. It's
wow.
going to go this direction or it's not getting published. Or
Hmm.
I've had friends that they've got a cover back from a big five publisher and they're like, what do you think? And they're like, I really don't like this and this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
could we just change this? And they're like, no, we actually no. That's the cover.
Wow.
We were just
Actually,
asking
no.
what you thought as a courtesy. So
Wow.
yeah.
Just to check a box. I needed to check this considerate box because I'm not, but
Yeah.
I sound considerate.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
There's
one
a
of
balance
those.
in everything, though. I'm never, ever, ever going to be able to get the kind of visibility and marketing that a big five publisher does. They're a corporation. They got money to throw behind stuff that I don't.
Well, I think that's a huge point that every indie self pub is there a difference, by the way? Indie and self
For
pub?
most people, it's hard to line. Some people will say you're only indie if you're self-pub. Other people say you're indie if you're with a small publisher as well. I'm of the school that indie is your anyone but a larger publishing house.
That's how I think.
Yeah.
So I just had to clear that up because I feel like every time I
Yeah.
say indie
A lot of
author
times people say hybrid. So if you're like a self-published and you've got book published through a publisher, I've been hearing hybrid kicked around
okay.
lately.
I
So
think that's confusing though.
yeah.
That's gonna make me ask the
You
question, what
sound
is a
like either
hybrid?
an electric car or some sort
Yeah.
of new
Yeah, are
X-Men.
you a Prius? Like, exactly. Um, yeah, so I'm excited for the wonderful things that I hear are coming. Um, I'm gonna make sure I didn't. Sometimes I'll get off an interview and be like, oh, I meant to ask this. So I'm just doing my brain scanning for a moment. I think I kind of went through everything I really needed to know, and it's so exciting that I get to do this. I tell everybody that to read a book is one thing and feel that kind of love for literature, but then to get to talk to those who write it and their inspirations, and it gives a little more, well, a lot more depth to the book. It does. And the books to come, and just the writing period that I will read of yours. So I just wanted to say thank you for letting me borrow you and get to talk to you about what you do.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Like I said, we have a lot of fun coming and watching your channel too, because like it's
Ah,
same thing. It's awesome to chat with and feel like you're closer to the person that wrote the book and get it inside their head a bit and figure out why they write like they write. It's a lot
Yes.
of fun with that.
And I have to say, the beginning where we talked about book one, and just kind of those relationships leading to you carry, I'm going to take that and kind of try to expand on that, and I may message you about it, because I
Yeah,
think that is
sure.
so fascinating. So thank you for bringing that up. But excited for what's to come. Thank you so much, everybody who is here live. Oh, real quick, Ithra, she wants to know what you're listening to right now. Is that
Yeah,
different?
audiobooks, I think.
Yeah.
I was listening to, see, I'm drawing a blank again. I think I commented on it. Ancillary Justice. Yeah, that series. And again, I can't remember the author because I'm the worst person in the world.
Oh no, you
Um,
should see me every day on this channel. I
yeah,
forget everything.
it's really cool because it's the premise is like ships that are run by thousands of ancillaries. So it's like bodies that get sucked in to be used as clones and soldiers, but they're all AI wired into one ship who's like one mind. So the ship is thousands of people. The ship gets destroyed and its conscience is down to like one ancillary, the one person. So it's out for revenge and also adjusting to the fact that it's a singular person now and not thousands of people.
That's
It's a
wicked.
really cool read.
Like,
Yeah.
who comes up with that? That is just
Yeah.
amazing to me. Who sits down and writes, I got an idea, I need to tell you. You want to hear it? Like, what?
Yeah. Oh, Graf
Ithra,
had it for me. Anne Leckie. That's who it is. Thanks,
what
Graf.
is it?
Anne Leckie.
Oh, Ann Lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry. All the way down there. Oh, Ann Lucky there. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that graph. Ithra, yes, Ashley is my much better half. She's like the 3/4. Like I'm that 1/4. No, she's awesome. She's always at least checking in the background. So Ithra, oh, that's you, huh?
Yeah, me.
Graf says, yes, her ability to craft a cover for Corey Ratliff and Saving His Bacon. Love how she came to his rescue. Yes. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any wonderful questions that you guys threw up here. Thank you all for being here. It's just, I think still, and I don't think it'll ever go away, the coolest thing to kind of be in the backstage and see people all waiting for us to talk. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
There he is.
Corey, were your ears burning? We've been talking about you
brother.
all the whole time.
Well, hey, you're never late. You're always right on time. First of all, but man, yes, we just go back and watch the replay, because I think you'll enjoy it, man. I hope you have a wonderful
fair
night.
Because I totally didn't show up for a conversation between you two. So
Well,
it's only fair that you're late for this one.
That's true. So, but if anything, I like the silver lining, right? Is the one-on-one with Corey. We got a lot of in-depth with what Corey's side of that was. And then we got Shelly's side, right? I think that it all kind of works out in the end. We have a big picture to look at instead of like two small pictures. So excellent. All right. Thank you guys for being here live. Oh, I have to say it. Of course I have to. It helps the authors on the channel, not just me, to like, share, and subscribe. I think it's incredible anybody who does so, because I've personally heard that when people do that, like authors messaging me, wow, that was very effective as far as getting exposure on my book, this and that. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. If you catch the replay, thank you as well. We'll see you tomorrow. And I'll announce who I'm talking with on Twitter here in a little bit. Again, thank you, Shelly. We'll talk later.
Thank you.